apart, here's the breakdown. These are also in the description. So first off, let's talk about IP addresses. An IP address, or Internet Protocol address, is given to each and every computer on a network. Doesn't matter if that's your home network or your internet service provider or ISP's network that you pay to be a part of, it gets an IP address. The IP address is the identity of your computer on the network, and without it, devices on the network won't know where to send their data. I like to use the analogy of snail mail. Each house on a street will need its own address, or the mailman won't know where to deliver your bills. The most basic of ways to connect to a network would be to pay an ISP for access to their network, and with it, access to the internet. You can't get free internet, really, unless you steal your neighbor's Wi-Fi, and I don't really recommend that. You'll need to pay an ISP for access. If you're on a tight budget, call them up and ask about any cheaper plans they have. Lots of times they will have plans that they don't advertise. So they'll send you a modem to lease, or you can purchase your own. What's a modem, you ask? A simple way to think of a modem is it will convert the signal coming from your ISP into something the PC can understand. In this instance, let's go with cable internet service, as that's what I have and I can easily show that. Hooking it up is easy. Screw on the cable line to the modem, and then an Ethernet cable into the back of the modem, and then the other side to your laptop. This is the most basic setup, even though it's not ideal nor recommended. More on that later. Your laptop will be assigned an IP address by the ISP, and it will now have an internet connection through the Ethernet cable. Well, what if you have more than one computer or device? You could add a switch. A switch will allow you to add more ports to a network. To hook everything up this way, you'd plug in the Ethernet cable into the modem, and then the other end to the switch. Now run an Ethernet cable from a port on the switch to any of your devices. Now your devices are connected to the network through the switch. You should be able to share files and other things and share the internet connection, but as I mentioned, this setup is not ideal. Each of these devices will need their own IP address, remember, and your ISP may only give you so many. Some may only give you 1 or 2, maybe 3. Once you exceed this number, whatever it is, those additional devices will not get an IP address and won't be able to communicate on the network. Also, all of these devices will be exposed on the public internet, which is a large security risk. The best way to share your internet connection between multiple devices is to add a router between your modem and your devices. Now, a router is a device that routes traffic between two different networks. The two different networks we would be connecting with this router would be the public network of your ISP and your now new private network on the other side of the router. Now, instead of everything being on the public network, aka the internet, you can have all of your devices behind the router on a private network, which is better for security. A router will also take care of handing out IP addresses to all of the devices you connect to it, and it will have plenty to give out. So you connect your modem to the WAN or internet port on the router, and then connect your devices to any of the LAN ports on the router. These ports are, in essence, a switch built into the router, if you want to think of it that way. If you need more Ethernet ports than your router has, you can add a switch. This picture will show you how to connect up a switch to a router. Now, we're missing one thing, right? All of our devices at this point have to be connected to the network with an Ethernet cable. Where's our Wi-Fi's at? To give wireless access to this network, you could add a wireless access point. You plug in your wireless access point into one of the LAN ports on the router, or to a switch somewhere in the network, add power if your switch or router won't provide it, and after a tiny bit of configuring, you have wireless access. Now, if a modem and a router and a switch and an access point sounds somewhat overwhelming, then there's good news for you. Rather than have all of these separate devices,